Okay, I want you to imagine something for a second. You wake up, grab your phone, check your banking app, and you see a message. Withdrawals are limited. It's that nightmare scenario we all think, nah, that can never happen. But the thing is, the entire financial system has fundamentally changed. And understanding how a modern crisis really works, well, that's not just some academic exercise anymore. It is step one to making sure you're protected. And listen, this isn't some black and white photo from the Great Depression. This happened in Cyprus, a modern European Union country. We're talking about regular people, folks who did everything right, had their money in insured bank accounts, and they woke up one morning to find out that money, it wasn't really theirs to access anymore. The system just shut them out. Overnight, zero warning. So that moment when the ATM just goes dark, that's the starting gun for this whole new kind of crisis. And we've got to break down how we even got to this point, because the sheer speed of how this all unfolds now has changed literally everything. So take a look at this. On the left, that's the image we all have in our heads of a bank run, right? People standing in these long, snaking lines. It was a panic for sure, but it took days, even weeks to really unfold, and that gave regulators a little breathing room. But look at the right. That's today. A bank run doesn't happen in lines anymore. It happens on your phone. It spreads at the speed of a text message, gets organized in group chats, and can completely overwhelm a major bank in just a few hours. And if you want to see how this plays out in the real world, well, we don't have to guess. We have a perfect and frankly terrifying case study, the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank. It is the blueprint for how fast things can fall apart now. Just look at this timeline. It is insane. On a Wednesday, March 8th, SVB announces some bad news about bond losses. By Thursday morning, the word is already flying through text messages and social media. By that afternoon, the digital floodgates just burst open. And by Friday morning, the 16th largest bank in the entire United States was gone. Not 48 weeks, not 48 days, 48 hours. It's almost unbelievable. $42 billion. That is how much money depositors tried to yank out of the bank in one single day. It just shows you the insane scale of a digital panic. The entire run was basically organized and executed online before most of the regulators even knew what hit them. So you see, this wasn't your grandfather's bank run. It was a bank sprint, organized, executed, and finished all digitally in a matter of hours. The rules have completely changed. But what caused that initial spark of panic? Why did everyone run for the exits at the same time? Well, this is the real underlying vulnerability. We're talking over $600 billion. That's the amount of unrealized losses U.S. banks were sitting on across their bond portfolios. You have to understand, Silicon Valley Bank wasn't some weird, isolated case. It was just the first domino to get knocked over because its hidden problems suddenly became very, very public. So here's the deal with that. It's actually pretty simple. Banks took our money, our deposits, and bought tons of super safe, long-term government bonds back when interest rates were basically zero. It seemed like a no-brainer. But then, to fight inflation, rates shot up, right? And when that happens, the value of those old low-rate bonds, it just plummets. Now, because of some funky accounting rules, banks don't have to publicly report those losses as long as they say they'll hold the bonds to maturity. So the losses are very real. They're just hidden on the balance sheets. It's like a slow-burning fuse just sitting there waiting for someone to light it. Okay, so that brings us to the most important question of all. When that spark finally does hit the fuse and a bank starts to go under, who picks up the tab? Most of us, we assume the government, the taxpayers will step in. But you need to know this. The rules changed. They changed in a huge way after the 2008 financial crisis. Right, so back in 2008, everyone was furious about taxpayer-funded bailouts. So the powers that be came up with a new system. It's called a bail-in. Here's the difference. A bailout is when public money, taxpayer money, is used to save a bank. A bail-in, that's when the bank saves itself, using the money of its shareholders. And this is the critical part. It's creditors. And you really, really need to understand who the law now considers a creditor. So the bail-in mechanism is basically a tool that lets a failing bank either write down its debts or convert them into equity, into ownership stock. And pay very close attention to that fine print. This can include uninsured deposits. Let me be crystal clear. If you have money in a bank over the FDIC insurance limit, you are legally classified as an unsecured creditor. And that means your cash, your deposit, can be legally taken and converted into shares of a failing bank to prop it up. And please, do not think this is just some theory. This is exactly what they did in Cyprus back in 2013. Anyone with over 100,000 euros in the Bank of Cyprus had their money forcibly converted into bank stock. Think about that. People went to sleep with cash in their savings account, and they woke up as unwilling shareholders in a bank that was going down the drain. The risk, it has been shifted, by law, directly from the taxpayer to you, the depositor. So, what does this actually feel like on a personal level? Enough with the abstract rules and legal talk. Let's walk through what the first 24 hours of a system-wide freeze would look like for you, for me, for regular person. It starts out quietly, 8 a.m. You go to log into your online banking, maybe to pay a bill, and you get that little error message, system maintenance. You know the one. You probably just shrug. It's annoying, sure, but you figure it's just a temporary glitch, and you get on with your morning. But then, around 11 a.m., the first real red flag pops up. You have an urgent wire transfer that needs to go out to pay a supplier, and it's rejected. No reason given, just rejected. You try calling the bank, but of course, all the lines are jammed, and that's when that deep, sinking feeling starts in your stomach. Okay, this is not routine maintenance.
And then, a few hours later, it gets personal. It gets humiliating. You're at the grocery store just trying to buy food for your family, and your debit card is declined. You know the money is there, the cashier just gives you that apologetic look, and suddenly, it's not even about the money anymore. It's about this sudden, shocking realization that you can't do the most basic things.
By 5 p.m., all the ambiguity is gone. You walk up to an ATM, and the screen isn't blank anymore. It has a new message, a cold, official message. Withdrawals temporarily suspended by regulatory order. And that's it. It's not a glitch. The system is frozen. Your money is still in there, somewhere, but it's not your money anymore. Not today, anyway. You can't get to it. So where does all this leave us? Let's just quickly connect the dots here and recap how these different pieces fit together to create the anatomy of a modern financial crisis. Okay, so we've really uncovered 3 core vulnerabilities. Number 1, digital speed. Bank runs happen in hours, not days, which means there's basically no time for anyone to react. Number 2, hidden losses. We have hundreds of billions of dollars in these time bombs sitting on bank balance sheets just waiting for a trigger. And number 3, bail-in legislation. The rules of the game have been changed. When a crisis hits, your deposits, your money, can be legally used to save the bank. And that brings us to the final crucial point. You have to realize that the entire system, the regulations, the new laws, all of it, is designed to do one thing: protect itself from collapsing. So the question you have to ask yourself tonight is, who's looking out for you? Because the system is designed to protect itself. Do you have a plan to protect yourself? In part 2, we're going to give you that plan. All right, welcome back. So in part 1 of our masterclass, we really peeled back the layers and looked at the cracks in the financial system, right? Well, now it's time to get to work. We're going to build your defense. So this is where we pivot. It's time to stop just understanding the problem and start building your personal solution. We're going to move away from that reactive fear and get into proactive empowerment. I'm talking about giving you a crystal clear, practical plan for what to do the moment things go sideways. So here's what we're going to cover. We've got 4 key layers to your defense. First up, we'll fortify your banking core. Then we'll talk about securing assets outside the system. After that, we're building an early warning system. And finally, the most important part, knowing exactly how to execute your plan when it really counts. Let's dive in. All right, let's get right into it. The first layer, and honestly, the most fundamental one, is all about maximizing the protections that are already there right inside the banking system. You know, a lot of people just skip over this part, but trust me, it is the absolute bedrock of your whole strategy. And this right here, this is such a critical lesson. It turns out that just being in an FDIC-insured bank is not enough. Not even close. I mean, the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank showed us in painful detail that a huge chunk of money, in their case 89%, can be totally uninsured. So you have to understand and operate within those insurance limits to be genuinely safe. So the big question is, how do you actually do that? Well, here you go. A powerful 5-step checklist. It's actually easier than you might think. You can expand your coverage just by structuring your money across different ownership types. You know, individual accounts, joint accounts. You can also use trust accounts, which is a great trick because they give you separate coverage for every single beneficiary. A really simple but super effective strategy. Just spread your cash across multiple, totally separate banks. And hey, if you've got larger amounts, you can look into something called a sweep account, which automatically spreads your funds for you. And the best part, you can double-check everything yourself. Just go to the FDIC's own website and use their tool. It's called ED to calculate your exact coverage. No guesswork. And here's something else you've really got to think about. Not all banks carry the same kind of risk. I mean, they're not all created equal. This table kind of breaks it down for you. You've got the GSIBs, the big, global, systemically important banks. These are the giants, right? The too big to fail guys whose collapse could set off a worldwide crisis. Then, way on the other end, you've got your local community banks. They've got a much, much lower risk profile. If one of them fails, the impact is mostly just local. So by spreading your money across these different types of banks, you're not just diversifying your money, you're diversifying your risk. It makes your whole setup that much more resilient.
Okay, so once you've shored up your position inside the banks, it's time for the next layer. This is where we talk about holding assets completely outside of that digital banking system. This is your moat. It's all about making sure you can get to your wealth even when the system itself locks up. Just look at this number. It is absolutely staggering. $42 billion pulled out of one bank in a single day. Think about that. This wasn't people lining up around the block. No, this was a digital stampede. A few clicks and poof, the money was gone. And that right there, that lightning-fast digital run, is exactly why you need access to funds that literally can't be frozen or blocked by a computer system. It's vital. Now, this is super important to get right. Cash and gold are not the same thing. They're not interchangeable. Think of them as two different tools for two different jobs, and you need both. Physical cash, that's your short-term survival tool. It's for immediate liquidity. It's what you're going to use to buy groceries, gas, essentials for that first 1 to 4 weeks when the digital payment systems might be down. Physical gold, on the other hand, that's your long-term wealth defense. Its job is wealth preservation. It's there to protect your purchasing power if a crisis drags on and starts to really eat away at the value of our currency. Okay, let's move on. A truly smart strategy isn't just about building walls. It's about building watchtowers. It's about having an early warning system that lets you see trouble coming down the road. Why? Because that gives you precious, precious time to act before everyone else starts to panic. And look, you don't need to be a Wall Street quant to see the signs. You just need to know where to look. Here are 3 big ones, your canaries in the coal mine. First, keep an eye on the repo market. Just think of it like the bank's overnight lending window. If you see those rates suddenly spike, it's a huge red flag that banks are getting scared to lend to each other. Second, watch for rising CDS spreads. A CDS is basically just an insurance policy on a bank's debt. So if the price of that insurance starts going way up, it means the market is betting that the bank is getting riskier. And finally, credit tightening. If you see news that banks are suddenly slashing credit limits or just flat out not making new loans, that means they're hoarding cash. And that's a sure sign they're battening down the hatches for a storm. And this is such a brilliant, kind of counterintuitive point from the legendary investor Stanley Druckenmiller. He basically says, when you see a high-ranking official hold a big press conference just to tell you everything is sound, that's not reassurance. That's a signal. Think about it. They don't do that when things are actually fine. They do it when things are starting to crack and they need to calm everyone down. So it's a huge signal that can often mean the exact opposite of the words being spoken. All right, this is it. We've reached the absolute core of the playbook. The warning signs have been flashing and now the news breaks. Restrictions are being announced. What do you do in those first critical 48 hours? This is not a drill. It's not theory. This is your calm, step-by-step emergency protocol. Okay, so here's the immediate response plan. Step 1, and this is non-negotiable, you stay calm. Panic is the enemy. It forces you into terrible emotional decisions. Step 2, execute your plan. You already did the hard thinking. Don't improvise now. Just follow your checklist. What's on that list? First, you log into your frozen bank accounts, and you immediately stop every single automatic payment and auto draft. Why? To stop a catastrophic cascade of bounced check fees. Second, you log into your employer's portal, the Social Security portal, wherever your money comes from, and you immediately reroute all incoming lifelines, your paycheck, your pension, any direct deposits, to a secondary safe account that you've already set up like at a local credit union. And finally, you focus on essential needs. You activate what's called the float strategy. You use your available credit cards, your lines of credit, to buy a 30-day survival window. This is for groceries, gas, medicine, all while your primary cash is locked up. It's a disciplined, psychological framework for getting through that initial shock. And look, remember this above everything else. In the heat of the moment, your primary objective is not to get rich. It is to preserve your capital and maintain your liquidity. That's it.
You preserve capital by stopping those bounced fees. You maintain liquidity by using that float strategy. The secondary objective, way down the line, is to position for recovery. You simply cannot profit from the opportunities that every crisis creates if you don't survive the crisis in the first place. Survival comes first, always. So that brings us to the final question, and it's a simple one. We've just walked through how to build your fortress, layer by layer. Your fortress has a plan. Do you? This whole exercise is about making a choice, to move from being a potential victim of the system to becoming a calm, strategic protector of your own wealth. A real plan isn't just some vague idea in your head. It's a physical checklist. And the time to write that checklist isn't in the middle of a hurricane. It's right now.